Hello, Sarah of SEK Handmade here, and today I'm going to share with you how to make popcorn stitches in a contrasting color. I'm using my Ellery Hat pattern to show this today, and I totally understand that color work can seem very intimidating, and all of this up here might be overwhelming, but I promise with a few tips and tricks, I'm going to show you how to make sure that all of that yarn does not get all tangled up. It really is simple. Now, as I said, I'm using my Ellery Hat pattern to show you this technique, but you can use this same technique of color changing to make contrasting popcorn stitches in any pattern, really. You can see that for my Ellery Hat pattern, I have the popcorn stitches all kind of stacked on top of each other here. I'm calling them my popcorn stack. And each one is a different color. But whether you're doing lots of colors or just a couple colors, similar techniques can be used to change colors for your popcorn stitches and to work the main color stitches in between. So to do this, you're going to want to look at your pattern carefully because obviously the stitches might be set up differently in a different pattern and might be worked just slightly differently. But even if your popcorn stitches are worked a little differently in the pattern you're using, no worries. The changing of the colors is worked exactly the same way. So the first thing you're going to want to do after consulting your pattern carefully is work to the stitch before your contrasting popcorn stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm just going to work up to the stitch before I want to place my contrasting popcorn stitch. And once I get there, I'm going to insert my hook. I'm going to pull up a loop and then I'm going to stop. This is where I'm going to change to my contrasting yarn. I'm going to bring my main color to the front and then I'm going to pick up my contrasting color. I have found that keeping the main color in front and all of the contrasting colors in back really helps keep things from getting tangled. So then I'm going to take my contrasting color, I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to pull through those two loops of my main color, and that's how I change my colors. Then I'm ready to work my popcorn stitch into the next stitch. And I found that trapping my main color yarn under my stitches for the popcorn stitch gives it a really nice smooth look on the inside of my hat, which I really like, but you wouldn't necessarily have to do that. But in that case, you're going to want to have it to the back of your work so that it's hidden. Then you're going to go ahead and you're going to make your 4 stitches for your popcorn stitch. But just like when you were changing colors for your main color, you're going to stop at your last stitch before completing it. And then you're going to drop your contrasting color to the back. You're going to bring up your main color, yarn over, and pull through those final 2 loops to change back to your main color. Then you're going to complete your popcorn stitch just like you normally would. Don't forget this part and just move on. I may have done that a couple times. It makes a big difference. You're going to pull your loop up nice and high, count back to your first stitch, which is so easy in the contrasting color because it's your first contrasting colored stitch. You're going to grab your main color yarn, tighten that loop and pull through to complete your contrasting popcorn stitch. Then you just stitch on until you're ready for your next contrasting popcorn stitch. Again, be sure to read your pattern carefully for placement. And then remember, you're going to stop the stitch before you change colors. You're not going to finish it. Then you're going to bring your yarn to the front of your work. You're going to pick up your contrasting color and you're going to complete that stitch with your contrasting color. Yarn over, pull through those 2 loops. And then again, I recommend just trapping your main color in there along with that stitch, and you're going to complete your next popcorn stitch. So go ahead and place 4 single crochets in that next stitch. 1 single crochet, 2, 3, and 4, and remember you're not going to finish that 4th stitch because we're going to change back to our main color. So drop your contrasting color behind, pull up a loop in your main color, and don't forget to finish your popcorn stitch. Pull up the loop nice and high, go back to your first contrasting stitch, insert your hook, put the loop back on your hook, tighten it up, and pull on through. Then you can just continue to stitch on in your pattern. And there you go. That's how you create a contrasting popcorn stitch. So much fun. Now, some tips on how to not get all tangled. When you're working your hat, you're essentially turning it all in the same direction because you're working in the round. And this can cause your contrasting yarn to wrap around each other. They're not tangled, they're just wrapped around. The way to fix this though is to go ahead and take your hook out, put your loop on a stitch marker so it doesn't unravel, and then you're simply going to take your whole hat and you're just going to turn it in the opposite direction. And this will cause your contrasting color yarn to unwind from each other. Now, I do highly recommend that you keep your bobbins or balls of contrasting yarn in a bin that they're not rolling around in, because this will help them from tangling up on themselves, which can be a pain. So super simple. And that is how you create a contrasting popcorn stitch. Written instructions are in the description below. Be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss out on any tips and tutorials, and happy crafting!